Hello, everyone. Mic's live. Can everyone hear me? Over the back. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sam, and I'm a sales engineer at Sophos. Now, Sophos, we are a global cybersecurity vendor. We provide products from leading endpoints to firewalls to cloud security tools and user training tools. Okay. Now, as a global vendor, we see threats on individuals to enterprise-sized networks and everything in between. Okay, so we feel we're in a pretty good position to talk to you today about the threat landscape. All right, but not just the threat landscape, the evolving threat landscape. So how threats have changed over the few years. Okay. So to do that, we need to take a brief history lesson. Okay. Mic doesn't work over here, works over here. Okay. So in order to understand the threats we face now and potentially in the future, we must first look into the past. And we're going to go all the way back to the 1980s, where a few notable issues happened. So this is a time where computers were still quite new, and so was the concepts of malware and cybercrime. My first favorite thing that happened in this time is something called the L-Cloner virus. Now, L-Cloner was a boot sector virus, so that just means it infected the part of a computer responsible for starting. Okay. And the sole purpose of L-Cloner was to, on every 50th boot, display this message, which goes, L-Cloner, the program with a personality. It will get on all your disks. It will infiltrate your chips. Yes, it's cloner. It will stick to you like glue. It will modify RAM 2. Send in the cloner. Okay, so I think we can all agree it's a pretty terrible poem, right? But what can you expect from the 15-year-old that developed it? The second notable thing that happened is the PC Write Trojan, which is one of the, or believed to be one of the first Trojan horses. Now, a Trojan horse essentially is a piece of malware that pretends to be something legitimate. Now, in this case, the legitimate application is PC Write, which was a word processor. And users thought they were getting the latest and greatest update version 2.72, I think it was. But in fact, what they were actually getting was a formatted hard drive. The last one I wanted to mention is the Morris worm, okay, one of the first internet worms. And a worm essentially just self-replicates by itself with no user interaction. Okay. Now, the author of the Morris worm is absolutely adamant that its sole purpose was to measure the size of the internet at the time. All right. The problem with it is how it infected a machine. So it infected your computer, and then it would infect it again, and then again, and then again. Eventually, your computer would slow down and become unusable. Now, the author of the Morris worm is actually one of the first people to ever be convicted under Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Okay. Now, this picture here is the source code in the museum. So if your goal was to make a name for yourself, as it was back then, it doesn't really get much better than that. So there's a threat trend going on here. So during this time, it was all about pranks on friends, causing destruction, nuisance. Okay, and the same thing can be said pretty much for all of the 80s up to the late 90s. Okay. Now, I wasn't around in the 80s. Okay, I was born in the 90s. I didn't really start using computers until early 2000s. So I have no experience of any of what I've just said. Okay, it's all just research and what I've read. But something I do have experience with is this guy. Can anyone tell me what this is? File sharing, great. So what was file sharing used for? Ripping. So LimeWire is a free peer-to-peer sharing client, and it was used to share files, exactly. Primarily for free music, all right, pirating music, amongst other things. And the problem with LimeWire is it was essentially just a minefield of malware. Okay. Now, of course, myself, I've never illegally pirated any music, as I'm sure no one has. However, I do have a friend. And my friend tells me that after you enjoy your free music, your browser might start looking a little bit busier than it used to. Okay? You also might notice these strange pop-up advertisements come up all over the screen. And of course, that antivirus that you never knew you had, telling you about all these problems, but it's fine because they'll fix it for you just for a small fee. So this is all as a response or caused by adware and spyware. Okay, and of course, fake antivirus. Okay. Now, it's only one example, but it notes the important shift from what we saw before, which is pranks, destruction, to this, which was money. Okay, money motivated. As the internet left its early stages and we started using things like emails, e-commerce a lot more, it became apparent that there was money to be made in cybercrime. Oh, that didn't click. So, what does the modern day look like? And a bit of a spoiler, it's not good news. So, 2 in 3 organizations fell victim to cybercrime in 2018. So the last full year. Okay, and 2019 is looking very much similar. Okay, so 2 in 3. The even worse number from here is 9 in 10 of those organizations were running up-to-date cybersecurity at the time of their most recent attack, or their most significant attack. Okay, so these companies thought they were doing everything they should be doing, patching early, updating, yet they still fell victim. So, why is this? And the problem is, threats are unknown. Okay, and that causes a problem for traditional type detection. So signature-based detection is a very good example of this. Now, signatures work by us having seen a file first, we analyze it, look at its behavior, say, yeah, it's bad, and send it out to our customers. And then that way, if you see the same file, you look at your signatures and go, ah, yeah, you're not getting in, blocked, right, bad file. The issue is files are now unknown, as we said. You've probably already read the slide, but our labs team, we see over 400,000 pieces of new malware, previously unseen, every single day. Okay. 3/4 of that is never seen again. So if you are under an advanced attack and a piece of malware gets in, there's a good chance that A, we haven't seen it before, and B, probably won't see it again. So this is where the problem of traditional type detection occurs. So, what are the threats that we face today? These are 6, probably the most common threats you're going to face. Okay, this is by no means a complete list, but just your day-to-day most common stuff. We have phishing, credential theft, malicious code, etc. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll get the obvious one out of the way, which is this guy, okay, ransomware. Now, for those of you who don't know, or the lucky ones in the room, essentially ransomware is a piece of malware that's going to encrypt your data. Okay? It may be, depending on who the target is, depends on the data. So it could be your family photos and videos. It could be financial information, staff information, client information. Whatever's valuable to you is the target. Now, once your files become encrypted, you're going to see a ransom note. This ransom note is going to say, hey, look, encrypted your files. Can't get them back unless you pay me this amount of money. You might notice this one or recognize it from the news back in 2017. This is the WannaCry ransomware note. And it becomes quite interesting with WannaCry. So it infected over 150 countries and 200,000 computers. Okay, and the bit where it gets interesting is when we look at the timeline. So this group called the Shadow Brokers, this hacking group, at some point, what they say, stole some NSA hacking tools, right, that the NSA discovered and kept in their back pocket for a rainy day. Now, in January, they tried to auction these tools off, but failed. They didn't get the money they wanted. And during this time, Microsoft, in March 2017, got wind of this exploit and patched it, released a patch. Here you go, go protect yourselves. Yet we see some quite time after that, May, is when the real meat of the outbreak began. And as we already know, 200,000 computers, 150 different countries, was still unprotected. Okay, so the patch was there to protect ourselves, just a lot of us didn't get around to patching it for one reason or another. So there was a good side of WannaCry, which was this. As a widespread feeling of vulnerability went across the world, really, almost overnight, the IT teams, the security teams became one of the most important people in the company, right? The momentum's fizzled out a little bit, but hopefully we can continue it going. Now, there is another example of ransomware, this one more recent, so 2019, Locker-Goga. It attacked several businesses, and one more notably, a large aluminium factory, essentially causing them or forcing them into manual operations. So if you can imagine a big factory going down to pretty much pen and paper. Now, this isn't as flashy as WannaCry. Okay, this is very targeted, and they just left this text pad, this text file. But a couple of things caught my eye. It starts with, you should be thankful. Okay, you should be thankful that the flaw was exploited by serious people and not some rookies, because they would have damaged your files just for fun or by mistake. All right. So we should be thanking them. It also ends with, as soon as we receive payment, you'll receive the decryption tool and instructions on how to improve your system security. All right, that's nice of them. Give your files back and throw in some free consultation services as well. How about ransomware as a service? Okay, this is Satan ransomware, which took a different approach. It will handle your payments. It will handle the infrastructure, even give you the malware, all for a cool 30%. Couldn't be easier. Just type in the ransom amount, the multiplier, so how much is going to increase by. And of course, interestingly enough, even the bad guys are worried about security and add the CAPTCHA in there as well. So, enough about ransomware. We'll move on to phishing. And I'm sure phishing affects us all every single day. I get Amazon, PayPal, invoice.zip all the time in my inbox. And it's a big problem, but it's not a means to an end in itself. It's always part of a bigger attack. 93% of breaches include phishing in some way. I'll move out of the way for this bit. The phishing motives are 59% financial and 41% unauthorized access. Okay. Now, we don't have to look far to find some evidence of phishing emails or how we can make money from here. So this is a story about Mr. Grant West, who is a convicted cybercriminal who used phishing emails to steal financial information. Now, reportedly, Mr. West, he used his girlfriend's laptop to carry out such attacks and also store over 100,000 pieces of stolen financial information. You can see him on the right here being arrested on the train, London train. Okay, so this is happening here, first class, of course. The type of emails he was sending out, reportedly, is these phishing emails. And he's going to send the emails out and say, hey, look, questionnaire, we'll give you a voucher. Okay, just fill out some of these questions and you'll receive a voucher. He then sold this on the dark web, and this is one of his adverts here. Now, interestingly, if we read the first part of his advert, it says, we have been at the forefront of the fraud-related vendor scene for years. All right? It's probably a statement he soon regretted when it came to his court day. But we can see how he's made a lot of money through here, reportedly over $1 million. Okay. Now, also reportedly, being careful with my words here, he apparently carried out cyber attacks on several high street brands in order to get a list of his victims, okay, which brings us nicely onto data breaches. Now, data breaches, we don't have to look far to see some high-profile data breaches in the news. Things like LinkedIn from a while ago, Marriott, MyFitnessPal wasn't long ago. And it's fair to say these companies aren't small. Okay, they have security resources. They have the people in place, yet they've still breached. And this could be a complex attack. It could be just an S3 bucket left there waiting for it to be found, okay, which happens a lot. The scary thing is, unless you work for any of these companies, you don't really have any control about how they store your data. But what we can do is use this handy tool called Have I Been Pwned? Pwned? How do we say it? Pwned? Pwned. Let's go with pwned. Have I been pwned? And essentially, it's a website that you go into, and you put in your email address, and it's going to scan these databases in the dark web, these leaked databases, and see if your details appear in there. All right? So to show you how it worked, I put my own email address in, and I know what you're probably thinking. Cybersecurity professional. It's not going to be on any lists. You'd be wrong. 8 separate data breaches my personal email address was found in. So we had things like MyFitnessPal, CalfPress, LinkedIn. I actually received an email last week after I made this presentation saying, hey, look, we found you on another one. So 9 databases I've been found on. Okay. Now, these types of attacks aren't the only issue. We have to think about targeted attacks, right? People who are targeting us for data. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not a target. I'm too small, not valuable enough, not worth the effort. Okay, but you'd be wrong. 58% of cyber attacks are carried out on small businesses. And that could be spray and pray. There's a lot more small businesses around than there are big, large ones, right? Could be low-hanging fruit. Maybe you don't have the resources or the skill set to secure that S3 bucket. Right. To give you an example of the problem or how widespread the problem is, we carried out a bit of an experiment. We put 10 Windows Server machines all around the world. Okay, we left them unconfigured, and we didn't advertise they were there. And these are called honeypots. And what we were looking for was who would try to access our servers. Does anyone want to give me a guess, over 30 days, how many login attempts we had on our 10 servers? A million. Millions. This is what happened. Over 4 million login attempts in 30 days to our servers. And like I said, we didn't advertise they were there. And the scary thing is the quickest one was 1 minute and 24 seconds after we deployed it. That's quick. Okay. So, the attackers are there. If you think you're flying under the radar, you're not. Okay, if you're using RDP over the internet, Azure, AWS, WordPress websites, okay, you are likely being attacked as we sit here today. So we've talked about some of the attacks and how they've evolved, and we'll actually go through one step by step. This is one called Imhotep. Has anyone heard of Imhotep before or been affected? Yes? Perfect. So the Department of Homeland Security said it's one of the biggest threats to US businesses in 2018. Okay. And Imhotep is a dynamically changing modular type attack. So we first saw Imhotep back about 5 years ago, and it started as a banking Trojan. Pretty simple. But it's had a number of upgrades since then, mainly evasion techniques, okay, different payloads. As we get further over here, some big ransomware, Ryuk and MegaCortex, to what we see today, which is what we call a crimeware as a service. Okay. And the way it kind of works is like this. We have our cyber criminal at the top, and we have our business network at the bottom. And this attack usually starts with a phishing email. Okay, so the phishing email is designed to make the user click on something. It will then call home, register a success, get instructions on what to do next, even get the latest payloads available. Usually from there, it's going to spread. Okay, it's going to spread throughout all your machines. Okay, now, once this happens, they own your business, essentially. And from there, a few things can happen. They could steal data, email addresses, passwords, files. And we've already seen how financial information can be sold. They could raid your contacts. Okay, start sending the same spam emails you were caught with to your customers, your clients. And because it comes from you, you're probably whitelisted, right? Probably quite trust you. And of course, they could drop a payload. That could be banking Trojans, could be MegaCortex ransomware. Okay, some really nasty stuff here. And this options here, this is really where the crimeware as a service comes. Okay, we could sell these actions on to the highest bidder. Okay, we could do all three of those. It doesn't have to be A, B, or C. So the table's a bit low. What have we learned? So they are quick. Okay, 1 minute, 24 seconds before they were attacking our servers. WannaCry, they were able to develop, deploy a largely successful attack before we could really even patch our own servers. Okay, so we know they're quick. They are attacking. Okay, so again, if you think you're flying under the radar, you're likely wrong. Okay, so they are attacking us now, and that's what we need to keep at our forefront of our mind. So when there's that patch that you're going to do tomorrow, okay, just keep in mind they are attacking you now. They are serious people. Okay, they're well-funded, well-organized professionals. We're far away from the teenagers in basements that we had in the 80s. These are well-organized criminal gangs. And when I say well-funded, I'm not talking hundreds, thousands. I'm talking hundreds of thousands, millions in some cases. Okay, these are big organizations. They work in offices like us. Okay? We need to evolve. Okay? It's the responsibility of all of us to evolve in our cybersecurity. So us as vendors, we need to bring you the latest and greatest technology, okay, the latest features that can protect you. But it's not all on us. Okay, users, they need to be cyber aware. It's no longer acceptable for a user not to know what a phishing email is, or even basic ways to spot it. Decision makers and business owners, we need to make sure the right people, the right budget, and the right systems are in place. We've already seen how the bad guys evolve, and to be honest, they're pretty good at it. Okay, this industry's survived a lot longer than some. All right? And if we don't do the same collectively, then they will win. And it won't be a matter of if we become a victim, it's going to be when. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude my presentation. I left it a little bit short to get you, so you can go out and get your coffee before the next one. I will be over there for the rest of the day, so please come over and have a chat if you've got questions. But other than that, thank you all for coming.